You're listening to a Pubhouse Network podcast for developers by developers.
Hello and welcome to the Stacked Podcast, episode 65, recorded on April 14th, 2023. My name is Kito Man. I am your co-host with a couple other awesome guys. Daniel Hinojosa. Hello, Danno.
Hello there. How's it going? We don't have any guests because we were at Devnexus and we collectively offended all of them. So we won't have guests for a while.
Whatevs.
Until Josh apologizes. No, I'm just kidding. Josh didn't do anything. He's the most innocent of all three of us. But yeah. No, we had a good time. We were at Devnexus, so we all got to see each other. Ian Hilavitz was not there, but yeah, we all got to see each other, have a great time. There are pictures floating around. I had quit Twitter like a long time ago because I didn't, not a fan of Elon, and I really like the idea of Mastodon and distributed social media. Like, who doesn't love that? So, but then I'm still signed in. I've just vacated Twitter, but like pictures were taken. And silly pictures were taken, and my phone kept going, bloop, 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 bloop. Like, what is going on? And I checked my phone, and it's just like, damn it, those pictures sure got up there really quick. But yeah, you go to Twitter, and you can see all of us having a really great time at Devnexus. So it's good to see all of you as well.
Yeah, definitely great seeing you. I'll put a link to at least, I know I took one picture. I'm not sure which other ones there were.
I'll put a link to all the embarrassing pictures.
All right, that sounds great. Well, so we'll put the links in the show notes at stackpodcast.com. So, all right, Josh, hello there.
Hey, how's it going?
Going okay.
Good. Yep. Everything's been going well here. Same stuff. Went to Devnexus, and it was my first time ever being at Devnexus. So,
oh, really?
It was definitely a great opportunity. I'm glad that we were all able to get together. Lots of great sessions, and they definitely know how to do a Java conference. It was really good.
Yeah.
So I had to.
So they had a big. They had just one track, like one Jakarta track. What was that all about? What kind of audience did you have? And were they all in the same room? I guess I didn't attend any of the sessions. Apologies there, but. Yeah, what kind of experience was that? I think this was probably the first ever like full hey, we have a full Jakarta track.
It was. And and it was and Kito and I both were in that track. And from what I could tell, it seemed as though they had quite a wide selection of, different JakartaEE related topics in the track. And I did go to a number of them. I probably only went to about 4 or 5 of them. But that said, when we had our session, I would say it was almost half full.
Wow.
Weren't you up against Venkat?
We were up against Venkat.
So that's pretty good for being up against Venkat.
Yeah.
To have a half a room. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't bad. And we had, lots of good questions. Lots of people were interested in it. Our talk was about JakartaEE and microprofile. I did the talk with Edwin Dirks, and using those two together and not butting heads, with the two different texts. And it was a good talk. And from what I saw, I did see one about JakartaEE and Spring, which is best. And it wasn't butting those two, head to head either. It was how to choose which to use, and you should know them both. They're both great. Was basically the gist of it. They both are good at different things, and so that was a good talk. And then I also went to JakartaEE panel where we had a number of users and developers for JakartaEE on the panel, and they just discussed and talked about different topics, which was pretty interesting. So
nice.
How did everything? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just had a question. Do you get a lot of questions like, our company had invested in classic legacy J2EE. How can I migrate over to everything JakartaEE without without overturning everything and making it hard. Do you get questions like that? Because I think there's that huge investment in J2EE for many years is, one of the things that propels interest in JakartaEE, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
In my particular talk, I do not get those questions. I think people come to my talk to figure out which one should I use, Microprofile or JakartaEE. And when Edwin and I discuss the two options and how you use them together, they, I think, walk away knowing that they're both great and they're both good to use together. But Kito, your talk was kind of on updating an application, right?
Yeah. So mine was more about like updating an app that was in like, JDK 6 or JDK 7 and WebSphere 6, like ancient stuff. And we upgraded it to Java EE 7 and JDK 8. So we upgraded it from like ancient to old. But it was about the whole process and everything we went through. And our look at it was the reason we ended up doing the choices we made was based on the client, like, because it wasn't like a whole technology refresh. It was more like a update so we could get security, and so we can check boxes off for supporting, having something that has security patches and things like that.
Yeah.
And it'll be around for a couple more years, and then we're going to replace it. So our requirements were different, but the reason I wanted to I had this talk is number one to talk to sort of show how those technologies are actually pretty backwards compatible. Like when you upgrade, it's not like you're throwing out like all your code. So we had one of the main reasons we didn't upgrade to like Open Liberty or something was because we had Jack's RPC. I don't know if anybody remembers Jack's RPC, but
Sure.
I had actually never worked with it. Like I managed to avoid it apparently, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I've never used it.
It was like the way to do SOAP before Jack's RS level of SOAP.
Okay.
Or whatever it's called. What was Jack's WS? That's what it was. Right?
Yeah.
The web server, the SOAP bindings. And Jack's RPC was a lot of code generation, tons of code generation, such to the point that you had to generate all this code to be able to use it. And then like debugging it is a major pain in the butt because there's all this generated code. Mm-hmm. But so because nothing new supports that, we kind of were stuck with an old version of WebSphere, and it wasn't in their budget to rewrite all these web services that have been working for over 12 years.
Right. Wow.
So anyways, what I think we ended up discussing was really the complexity of the project wasn't really necessarily upgrading the Java side. It was all the things around it. It was the fact that the code was in like some ancient source code repository, and we had to migrate it to Git without the history. And the fact that their build process was a whole bunch of ancient ANT scripts that generated code, and you couldn't even build the app locally unless you had like rational application developer or something. It was about modernizing a lot of their whole stuff so that it actually, it can be usable by people who come onto the project and things like that. Sure. So I got some really interesting questions, or just other people going through old migration trying to figure out what all this code does and trying to upgrade it and things like that. So I didn't get a whole lot of like we're doing some major migration things, but a lot of people running into situations where they have to deal with some legacy code and things like that.
Nice.
So yeah, that was kind of fun talk. And my talk wasn't packed, but it was very comfortable. And it was a pretty engaged audience. So that was nice.
Nice.
And I saw Ivar's talk about what is it? I think I don't remember what it's called, but it was about like upgrading all the Spring dependencies for JakartaEE 10.
Oh, okay.
Or I guess really And so that's pretty cool. Actually, it's JakartaEE 9. 9 is the one with the namespace change, right? So yeah. So it's about updating all that stuff because you have to do it if you're upgrading to a new version of Spring. So it's this talk is really it's actually kind of funny. So that's a good talk. I get a chance to see that one as well. So
Nice.
So yeah, so while we're on the topic of Devnexus, so anyone who doesn't know, Devnexus is I think it's the biggest Java conference in the US currently. If I remember.
I think because I don't correct me if I'm wrong. Good thing none of us are employed by Oracle.
Yes.
But they're not doing it this year, right? Like that was the one and done, I guess, last year. Because I think they're doing Oracle Cloud World, but there's no Java 1.
There's no, I don't think we have an official word from them on it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get one. But that's just a theory of mine. But
my take is we're probably not going to hear much else about it. But,
yeah.
Which is a shame.
It is.
Yeah. So, but that would mean Devnexus is numero uno now. So
yeah,
that's why I was asking.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah, but it's a great conference. So next year, for anyone who's listening, just a great conference, great way of networking, and they have the podcast. I know they had game night. I didn't end up going to game night. I played games over at the hotel, so like board games and
that's nice.
Outdoor events, and or try to do outdoor events. It was raining the last day, but so many great events. And if you do or don't drink alcohol, there are like non-alcohol things that you can do, or just hang out with others. So lots of great things, lots of great friends, and wonderful conference.
So,
yeah, and go ahead.
I was just wondering, Danno, I was only there, unfortunately, for like 24 hours. So I got to see Josh and Danno and go to do my session and go to some booths and go to like one or two other sessions, and that was it. But Danno, what was your talk about?
Mine was machine learning data pipelines with Kafka and TensorFlow.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm now curious about how you're bringing those two together. Huh.
Oh, man. Have you seen the Charlie Day meme where he's like on the poster board and there's like push pins and he gets conspiracy theory and they all have pins and he's trying to describe this whole conspiracy theory and he looks like he's nuts. Anyway, that's my presentation. So it's about taking information from a microservice. Once that's posted, you don't post to a database, you post it over to Kafka. So that way you can do some streaming with it. You ingest from Kafka, part of a streaming app, and then you call via a RESTful service or a gRPC. You call TensorFlow, which you deploy with TensorFlow serving. So it's not actually that hard, but trying to bring all the components together is kind of tough.
Yeah.
And to do it in 50 minutes, that was even tougher.
Nice. Okay. So basically you're ingesting a whole bunch of stuff from Kafka into TensorFlow. And then what's the output?
The output is either gRPC, or you mean from TensorFlow?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the probabilities of whatever classification you're looking for. So I'm doing like newspaper articles with the classification of like, hey, this is about gold, this is about trading, this is about aluminum, this is about whatever.
Okay.
So when you call the web service, you just post, like in this case, the article, but it's all prepared, meaning that you have to prepare it, change everything to floating point value and whatnot. So part of the pre-processing pipeline, and submit that over to your service. And what you get back is the probabilities of each one of those classifications.
Okay.
Then from there, you post that back into Kafka, and you can write that to another database, which could be ingested by some other web service and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
I just look like a mad hatter every time I give that in a, particularly if I'm at a time constraint of like 50 minutes. I'm like,
yeah. Buzzing through it.
Yeah.
That's right.
I saw a good talk, Mary Gregliski, and she also had a co-presenter who was on Kafka and Apache Pulsar. It was pretty decent talk. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I've not really used either of them. I haven't needed to, but they do look like interesting technologies. And of course,
I think Pulsar is headed by or has the financial backing from DataStax, where Mary works now, I think.
Okay.
Right?
I remember.
Yes, I think so.
Isn't Pulsar like a layer on? Is it a replacement for Kafka, or is it like a layer on top?
I thought they were competitors.
Yeah. Okay. That's.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, basically that talk was which should I use type thing, and it was basically the same type of discussion where they're both good. It's probably good to know both of them and whatnot. So it was definitely a good comparison talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I had one other question. So there is our sister podcast, and you guys did that live, right, Josh?
We did that live. It was a good podcast. I think it was a little late for most of we had a couple of things going against us for the audience because they put us in like room 313 and then it got moved to 315 and then it got moved back to like 312 and nobody knew where it was at. So lots of people were in 315 waiting. And we had someone go down there and get them and bring them in, but it was moved around. And I had people tell me, "Hey, I couldn't find your session."
That's okay. It was you, Freddie, and
Freddie, Bob.
Was Michael there?
Michael was there. Yep, and then we had Brian Fox there as well, and we talked a lot about software bill of materials and things like that, security on that. So It was a good discussion. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And just if you don't know, the podcast is off heap.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry.
Are they so is that going to be your next episode? People that want to hear it?
Yep. That should be the next episode. It was recorded live. A couple of questions from the audience, but most of it was a good discussion with our guest, Brian. It was really good, interesting information.
So
we're got a good perspective on it.
Because the software bill of materials is one of the things I wanted to ramble about. So what's Brian's background?
He works on the board for Maven security pipeline. So he brought in that side of it where you don't really know what you're pulling down from Maven to ensure that it's safe. And one of the questions I asked was, well, if you see a security vulnerability out there on Maven, can't you just pull that down? And he said, yeah, that you could certainly do that. But then if you look at Log4j, how many projects would you break? It's a quick fix, but you'll break a lot of things. And so it's better to put that power in the hands of the customer is basically what it comes down to. So it was that kind of a discussion,
Interesting.
That was really good.
Yeah, I'll check that out, definitely.
Yep. And I just wanted to mention one more thing about Devnexus is those of you who haven't been there, and for me, this is the first time, and also my first time being to Atlanta to really, be in the city.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I've driven through it a couple of times going to Florida, but, and it was, traffic is a mess. But being in that city itself, it was a great location for the conference. It was centrally located. All of the activities obviously were within walking distance. The hotel that I had was not too expensive. It was just a great area, and I definitely would recommend it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you go to Breakfast Club, Josh? I don't even know if I told you about it.
No.
What?
Oh my gosh! All right. Next year, Breakfast Club. It is a restaurant, and I think I went for the first time like 7 years ago, and no one knew about it, and it was empty. It's not empty anymore. In fact, you have to wait like nearly 40 minutes to get into it. So take a look at Atlanta's Breakfast Club. Waffles, peach cobbler, because peach is there, but chicken and waffles, eggs, and just an amazing breakfast. You're going to like consume like 3,000 calories in one sitting, but just don't eat the rest of the day. You'll be fine.
That's probably good to do before a talk.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Thank you.
I'm adding this to the picks now. This is a Danno.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a good pick right there.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I think I ate at the hotel that morning, the one morning I was there, because I woke up a little later than I expected due to the previous night's activities. And I was just like, I need to eat and then get ready for my session. So I just ate at the hotel. But
and that's another plug for the conference, because I did go to the breakfast at the conference itself on Wednesday morning, and it was unbelievable.
really,
It was really good.
Really?
Yeah, they had great food there, great selection of different dishes, breakfast dishes. It wasn't just a pastry and a coffee. It was,
So they had protein.
They had protein there. You could get sausages. You could get, of course, muffins. They had some kind of French toast bake, which was really good. They had lots of different things. It was really good.
Nice.
Oh, cool. Yeah, early Devnexus were just pastries. And I was told, yeah, Danno, come on down. We got breakfast down here. And I'm like, dude, those are just pastries, which I like pastries.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing I eat. And, in the morning, and a cup of coffee, I'm going to crash hard like within that 1 hour. And I'm not going to be feeling good. I'll be grumpy as all get out. So
yeah,
so
I was really happy with their breakfast.
Yeah, that's how I am too. It's like if especially when you're at a conference and you've got to be on the whole time, it's like, okay, you want to make sure that you eat a good breakfast so you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the afternoon's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Any other Devnexus things?
No, just pure awesomeness.
Yeah.
Okay.
As
It
always.
was good.
Awesome. So, all right. So we've got a few random topics to talk about since we don't have a guest, but honestly, we're good at talking. I think if you listen to this podcast, you probably recognize that. So
If we can't talk well amongst ourselves, how can we talk well with guests that come on?
yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
That's true.
Practice.
So I'm going to start by channeling on the what's the word? Not illustrious. Reclusive. No, not reclusive isn't the right word either. But I'm going to channel Ian. So there's a few links he's left us with for front end stuff. But I added this one. Have anyone heard of this Eclipse Scout project? I don't know where I ran across this. I was on the Eclipse site poking around, and I was like, I found this Eclipse Scout. It's a one-stop framework with straight concepts, a strong application model, and a versatile UI. It enables you to develop professional software in Java or JavaScript. And
Whoa, that looks really good.
it's like some full stack framework, has responsive UI, modern web tool stack, widgets and everything. And of course, the site makes it look great, but I was like, no one has ever mentioned this before. Like,
Yeah. Oh man. I'm kind of like sad for them right now because I'm looking at the Hello Scout Classic page, and it tells you how to get started within IntelliJ, which seems wrong for like an Eclipse project.
well, Eclipse
But
is
it shows Eclipse further down, but no, that's pretty good.
this is how I found it. I think I saw the Eclipse IDE for Scout developers, and I'm like, what's that? So then I went and looked. So anyways,
That's interesting.
if you've ever worked with Scout before, you should ping us at Stack Podcast on Twitter, and
Yeah, that's cool.
when I get around to it. But yeah, I'm curious about it. Because whenever you see something like that, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool. They put a lot of work into it, obviously. So, all right. Another thing he had here was TypeScript 5 is out, and that's kind of a big deal. So TypeScript 5 came out about a month ago, and it has a lot of wonderful new features. And the one which I'm really curious about is decorators. Now, if you've worked with TypeScript before, you know that decorators in TypeScript have been around forever, and they're always like experimental. But a decorator is pretty much like an annotation in Java, right? So, and they're really helpful for building code where you want to declaratively specify different aspects of your code, right? So now JavaScript or ECMAScript they've had it for a long time. They've had a decorators proposal, but I guess now it's finally making its way into ECMAScript. So TypeScript is switching to use the real, recent version of decorators. So I haven't looked at it into it deeply enough to fully understand how it's different than the TypeScript decorators, but I'm guessing this is going to be a pretty breaking change for anybody who's using the old school TypeScript decorators. So that's but I'm glad to see it actually making its way into the language proper, which is a good thing. So
yeah,
that's kind of cool. They've added const type parameters. All enums are union enums, support multiple configuration files and extends, which is nice. Overload support in JSDoc and satisfy support in JSDoc. Exhaustive switch case completions, which sounds nice. And of course, speed, memory, and package optimizations are always cool. So, so encourage you to check it out. I definitely in the projects that I'm on where we use TypeScript, I'll definitely be taking a look at it. It looks like,
because with Angular, you don't have a choice, right? You have to go TypeScript.
I think so. I think in the initially when Angular 2 or now 15, when that whole generation came out, they had like examples in JavaScript, but I don't really think it's very well supported. I think they pretty much just expect you to use TypeScript with it. So, anyways, TypeScript 5. So that looks like a nice one.
Definitely does.
Also, there is now Prime 1 2.0 for Figma. So if you use any of the Prime Faces libraries or Prime NG, Prime Vue, Prime React, they now have templates for Figma. And I don't think we've used these before, but it's kind of cool because Figma now is pretty much the de facto for designers these days. And so
is it for like slides or is it for web pages as well? Or is it meant for web pages?
Figma,
I guess I've seen it as like making presentations.
In Figma? Usually from what I've seen, it's more like designers, like UIX stuff, like building out the look and feel of the application. Because what's nice about it is one of those infinite canvas sort of products. So you can sort of like have different groups of things, and then you can also have different layers and layers with different pages and everything. So I've been very happy. We use it on speaker tracks, and I've used it on other projects before. So that's pretty handy. And I think we actually use Vivada and has some stuff for them too. So
question, I've not used too many of these themes, these design systems. Is this something you could use with like JSF as well, Jakarta Faces, or?
Yeah, you could, because you can think of Figma as just a tool, right? You can put whatever you want in there, but the nice thing about having the templates is that if you are building out like UI stuff in Figma, the designer, you can then use the look and feel of whatever products you're actually working with, right? You get like and the Prime 1 Figma, I guess it's a template, or I'm not really sure what the terminology is, but they support Prime Faces. So Figma doesn't care. It's just a matter of what you're using. And the benefit is that if you are mocking up UIs in Figma, you can drag and drop components onto into Figma that look like the actual components that the app is using. So
nice.
It also helps you come up with the theming, right? You can sort of start with the basic theming from the Figma templates and then customize it, So yeah, Figma's a pretty cool tool. And what's interesting is that Adobe, always being the adept company it is trying to acquire them. So, and I think it makes sense, because I think they're smart enough to know that if the designers prefer that tool for doing UI design, then clearly it's a logical thing for Adobe to want. And apparently they started trying to acquire them in September last year. And I just checked, because Ian had put this link in a while ago, and they're still trying to close the deal. So apparently there's some regulatory issues they've run into. I guess Figma's gotten pretty big, and but they're still trying to acquire them. So we'll see what happens. But Adobe is always impresses me, because every time you think they're gone, they manage to, really, come up with the new products and services people want. So
yeah.
So another one I wanted to mention is Rife 2. Is anyone? Do you guys remember Rife 1, the initial version of Rife?
I don't remember. I don't think I've ever used it. I do remember hearing of it. Yes.
Okay. So the reason I mention this is because so Gert Bevan was or is a Java developer. And I used to see him at conferences. Rife was one of the frameworks back in the old days with the Tapestry and JSF and everything. And it was like one of those, it was a full stack framework. And its claim to fame was support for continuations. So you could have, a request come in and pause, and then essentially it would return back to the browser. And then when the user wanted to, it would continue at that same spot. And it was pretty hardcore engineering to do that back in the day. And that was Rife's claim to fame. So I think he worked on it, he did consulting and stuff with it for a long time. And then he switched switched industries, not careers, but he basically started doing software for music companies, like music instrument developers. And now he works for Moog. And he also, I think he puts out music too. So, and so I kind of figured he wasn't really that involved in the Java community anymore, because, that's not really what I'm sure that I think he's a product manager at Moog now, but I'm pretty sure even when he was writing code, it was probably like C++ or something else. Mm-hmm. Right? So then I think this year or last year, I saw him posting about, Rife 2. And I'm like, what? You don't even do Java in your day job anymore. And he basically has a new version of Rife, and he's using the Project Loom features.
Oh, cool.
They allow you to do much closer sort of continuation sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And Rife 2 is totally, full stack as well, which is fascinating. And so
it looks interesting. So it provides you the ability to develop web pages without using any XML or HTML at all, huh?
Yeah.
And easy way to test them as well, just by using annotations and doing mocking the pages.
Yeah. And what I don't fully understand how you're supposed to handle complicated content, if you've got a lot of actual pages. I'm not
sure.
But I'm sure there must be some way to do it. But it looks like Moog is actually using Rife 2, huh? There you go. So I obviously I tend to use more popular frameworks and more things like JakartaEE or Spring or MicroProfile or whatever, but yeah. I'm always curious to see what people come up with, and Gert is pretty brilliant. So and just looking at all the stuff that's in this, it's pretty incredible amount of stuff. So
yeah,
I want to take a look at different. Check it out.
It's definitely something worth taking a look at. And it kind of reminds me of one of the new features in JakartaEE 10, which is the ability to develop Jakarta server pages by using pure Java code.
Yeah.
So one of the examples in my talk was to do this. And exactly to your question, I'm not quite sure how or why you would want to do this to develop some very complex logic within pages. Definitely, it's easy to do with a small UI, and I'm sure that some people would love to, program it all out and type it all out in Java code. But to me, it just seemed to be a little complex. I wonder how that compares with Rife, or also something like Bod. That's very similar as well.
Yeah. And I am finding it does have a template sort of engine thing in here. So, yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
So, shout out to Gert. I don't think you listen to this podcast, but looks like you have an interesting project for Rife too.
Yeah, maybe we'll start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, along the same lines, I'm not. I just wanted to mention this. So actually, they do have a new version out. So have you guys heard of Hilla before? Well, while we're on the alternative framework.
Yeah, this is a Vaadin product. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so Vaadin's been around a long time, and they have their own framework that lets you write web applications in pure Java, and it handles all the magic of making the JavaScript side. And what they had done for a long time is they had web components, which and they still have them. And you could either just use the web components by themselves, as written in JavaScript, or actually I think TypeScript, or you could use them with Java, and you get a Java API for them. And I've actually used the web components many years ago in different projects, just pure web components. But they have a new framework now called Hilla, which is basically like a little less full. Like Vaadin was good at sort of giving you a whole end-to-end development environment in Java. Hilla is more like, well, we know you probably like Spring Boot. And we think, we like web components, and that's what all our components are in. So let's just give you a lot of glue to make it so you can write code using Spring Boot, but basically not worry about any of the interaction. Like, like the main thing about Vaadin is you don't have to say, okay, I'm making a REST call to get data. You just basically call a database and get data, and magically it shows up in your UI, right? So I think Hilla does more of that kind of stuff, and it kind of abstracts a lot of the communication between the client and server. So this is something I haven't played with, but I've been curious. It's one of those things I've been watching for a while. So
it definitely looks good. And while I was at Devnexus, and also while I was at other conferences, I think Java One last year, Vaadin did have a booth, and they were showing some of this, and it really does look pretty nice,
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if they're they've got two very interesting frameworks. So I guess it depends on what the clients want. So, but
just learn them all. More tools for the shed, right? You pick the one that works the best for your next project.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so that one looks pretty cool. So that's the end of my front end treatise. So, Josh, nice. I think we had a topic there.
Sure. It's another kind of front end topic. And this is just another great framework. JavaFX, or OpenJFX is what I believe we refer to it now as. New release, OpenJFX 20. This came out around the same time as Java 20 was released. I believe that they're trying to stay kind of in sync with the Java releases. And I had to hand it to Gluon and everyone who's really involved with OpenJFX. It's really becoming, I shouldn't say it's becoming, it is continuing to be a great product. They're building it out to make it even better. And JavaFX really is a nice front-end framework for developing applications that are, full applications for your desktop. And it's just a great thing to see it continuing on after it was removed from the JDK. So some important changes in this release. JavaFX 20 requires JDK 17 or later. And then I don't know if you've used JavaFX in the past, but FXML JavaScript was one of the ways you could develop the front end pages and views. And now this engine is disabled by default, because I think they may be trying to phase that one out. And then lots of fixed bugs in this release. So, and lots of security fixes as well, improving the FX pages, better platform image support. There's a number of them. I'm not going to name them all off, but it's probably a good thing to go ahead and upgrade to this if you're using JavaFX. And if you're not using it, it's worth taking a look at. This is a great framework for developing desktop applications.
Very cool. Yeah, I'd like to play with that again sometime. It's been a long time since I really looked at it in detail. So,
yeah.
Also, I'm curious about the support for doing mobile with it, which would be kind of interesting. So,
Yep. I know that they had, I think like, what was it, like 3 years ago now, they had released that engine where you could compile your code for iOS or Android and port your application over the, I wonder how that's doing. I haven't really heard too much about it recently.
Yeah, same here. So interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So got a couple of server-side topics. First one is this is one of the areas that I think MicroProfile is working on, but if you follow observability metrics, all that kind of stuff, you're looking at MicroProfile and Quarkus. You may have noticed that if you go to the Quarkus docs, it basically says we want you to use micrometer. Or I don't know if it's missing micrometer or micrometer. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure.
I think depends on where you're from.
Okay. Because they basically prefer that over the microprofile metrics, which is a little bit older and doesn't have like the industry momentum that micrometer does. So there's an article on that we linked to in the show notes that talks about how Quarkus is dropping support for microprofile metrics. But I think what it underscores is just the evolution of microprofile with in terms of observability with open telemetry and micrometer and all that kind of stuff. So I think what we're going to see is the spec is going to sort of catch up and deal with supporting sort of the larger standards for observability and the ecosystem. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. So another link here is that I think I ran across this somewhere. So Amazon's always fascinating me because they have a very layered approach to their stuff, right? They have EC2, which was great when it came out 15 years ago. And they sort of just layer more and more stuff, services, features, and things on top of their lower level offerings. So I ran across this a while ago, the Amazon AWS Application Composer, which lets you basically visualize sort of a drag and drop sort of fashion your application. So you can sort of integrate, let's say API gateway with a Lambda function, with an SQS queue, with S3 or whatever, and sort of build sort of the stack and get a visual representation of it. So I have nothing I haven't played with. I just ran across it when I was looking at some AWS features, but it looks pretty interesting.
It does.
So if you use AWS a lot, you might want to check it out. It seems to me like it might be a great way to sort of visualize and represent a lot of the complexities in some of the larger cloud applications. So,
yeah, and it definitely, whenever I don't use AWS or much of the cloud very often in my day-to-day work, but whenever I do take a look at things like this, it's just amazing what they've come up with now, how easy they've made it to do this stuff. And tools like this application composer are really making it just to drop in the bucket to throw something up in the cloud and monitor it and configure it and do what you want to do with it very easy. Right. It's not like it used to be 5 years ago, but no, in the cloud.
It's pretty amazing. And this is what I mean about the whole layering thing. It's like, a while back, AWS came out with CloudFormation as a way to describe a stack of different services, right? Mm-hmm. And it has a YAML representation. You can also build stacks with their what do they call it? The CDK, which I forgot what it stands for. But basically, you can build and deploy a stack in code.
Sure.
But it looks like this application composer, really all it is, it's a front end to a CloudFormation template, right? So it's sort of like they have a base, which is a CloudFormation template, which can be used to create a whole bunch of different services and relationships, right? And then they have all these different ways to create one. It's like you can either use the CDK to write code in different languages that can use it, that can create stacks. You can use this tool to create a stack. There's, all sorts of ways. So
Nice.
It's just been really interesting to see how they're handling things. So, all right. So AWS Application Composer is another choice, another option topic. And we also have JakartaEE 11 out here. Now, this may be a holdover from the last. This might be a holdover from the last talk we had. Did we talk about JakartaEE 11 much last time? From the last.
Well, we didn't really talk about it too much, I don't believe. It's really still in the discussion phase.
Yep.
They're trying to decide what's going to be. And I'm sure that there are some things moving forward and being worked on at this point, just to get the ball rolling. But yeah, this is really a high level discussion at this point as to what's going to be involved with 11. I don't think we covered it.
Okay. So yeah, I think the plan is to put it out early, first quarter next year, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So we'll in the show notes at stackpodcast.com, you can find links to there's a Google Doc with a discussion about it. So if you have any comments, you can throw them in there. But there's a few sort of key themes, right, that are probably worth mentioning. And I think one of them is CDI.
Yep.
So a lot of it is basically building on top of CDI, there's so many loose ends, I think, where some things don't use CDI, but probably should.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of cleanup along those lines.
Yeah, and one of the things with CDI is one of the main things is that they're trying to prune these older technologies out of JakartaEE in such a way that you don't have to worry about using something that was built for, back in the J2EE days. One of these main discussion topics would be EJB. Lots of people still think of EJB as a heavy product that they don't want to have to code and worry about for their regular applications. And for most applications where you're using Jakarta right now, you still have to use EJB to some extent. But that's not to say that they're still the old heavyweight champions of the past. They're not hard to develop. They're very lightweight. However, I think that it's just kind of a perception thing. And in order to make it even more lightweight, taking some of that functionality and baking it into CDI so that EJBs can go away altogether.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like there's some overlapping feature sets, right? CDI does a lot of the same things that EJB does, but
right,
different way, and most would argue a better way. So
yes,
so it's good to sort of clean out some of that stuff.
Yep, and then also a couple of new specifications for JakartaEE 11. Jakarta config is probably going to be part of 11, and this would be something like microprofile config, if not just a direct usage of microprofile config into Jakarta. And that will enable you to develop a single application deployed to many different containers or servers and use different configuration on each, basically. And then Jakarta data is another one that is definitely being discussed right now. It would be kind of like a parallel to something like Spring Data, this specification. So, and then Jakarta NoSQL as well. That's another one that's in the works.
Right. I was, I saw a tweet by Gavin King recently.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically saying he still doesn't see any point for having like a data, like a repository object. You can just talk to the entity manager because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, I bet she's not too into having Jakarta data in that. But
Yeah, probably not. But
I guess that seems odd because don't I think you need like a business layer to interpret the data.
Well, I think I haven't talked to Gavin in many years, so I think it's a grain of salt. I think the last time I saw him, he was doing a tour about, what is it, Ceylon or Jalen that he was working on.
Ceylon.
Yeah, a long time ago. Anyways, but I think his argument would be that then it's the service layer can do business logic. It's just that you don't need to have like the service layer talk to a data layer, which then talks to Hibernate or JP.
Yeah, it's like you kind of have a facade now that kind of you utilize as a middleman.
And
I can see that. Yeah.
I can see it too. Like, and I think I'm trying to think about some of the applications I've worked on. Some of them, depending on lots of different factors, I have seen that pattern where the service will just do those calls because there's really no reason to have another layer. So
yeah, when you get into something like where you require transactions and things like that, I think that's more when you need to have that middle layer because that will abstract a lot of those details away from you because you don't have to worry about it.
Right. And then the service can just do the business logic part of things.
Right.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something else that, go ahead. Sorry, Danno.
No, I was going to say that's exactly a really great reason for that. That would be the location where you start off that particular transaction. But
Yeah.
Something else that is worth mentioning for JakartaEE 11 would be possible usage of, well, there's a few things to discuss. Possible usage of Loom for concurrency, because at this point, they're discussing which JDK we're going to be needing to use with JakartaEE 11. And if they make it 21, then Loom should be baked into to JDK with version 21.
Yeah.
So at that point, why couldn't you start to use Loom instead of regular threading?
Which would be really nice. I think Loom really. It took me a while to get it, but now I get why it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
I think on the application server container side, I think the vendors would be doing more of this because they would be doing something with the managed executor services and using Loom there. And we would probably still be handing off to the services just like we do now in our applications, but in the back, it would be doing Loom.
Yeah. And I think there's other areas to use it at the API level, maybe not in this time frame, but Hibernate has a whole reactive API.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
So it may be possible to bake to basically provide APIs on top of JPA that are non-blocking without having a whole separate API, that's not part of the standard. So, that'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think has been missing from JakartaEE for a while, and I'm kind of interested to see what happens with it, is a testing framework. Because right now, you have to kind of go out and utilize these testing frameworks like Archillion that are not really meant or, not really modernized to use with Jakarta. And you have to use something like that. Test containers, I've not ever worked with it. I've heard that it works.
Oh, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
I like it, dude. Danno's like,
absolutely amazing.
Okay.
I have one for NoFluff, and I just did one yesterday for St. Louis Jug.
Okay.
And I start off with the test containers, and I talk about Stack Overflow driven development, where you can take like database code, put in a test, figure out what your database does, and then just start moving it into your service or DAO classes or whatever you want to call it. I love doing that presentation so much.
I just realized that now I know where I saw you mention that, because I'm on the mailing list for the St. Louis Judd. So I saw your meetup. And I was
that was last night.
That sounds interesting. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's Danno. Yes. Yeah. So and actually what the way I look at the testing side of things is I agree with you. Like for years I thought, why isn't there a standard way to do testing? JUnit is great, but there's, Archillion, I'm not a big fan of because it always seems like a pain in the butt to get to work.
Configuration, yeah.
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 And yeah, I've
That's
used
containers rules
a lot. And actually, we were just talking to a client writing some integration tests for actually a JSF app we maintain. But we're like, we should really just use test containers to run your SQL Server. And I was like, wait, how would that work? And then Bake, my colleague, he's like, there's a SQL Server instance for Linux now. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that because this client uses a SQL Server. So I was like, oh man, we got to use Windows. But no. So along those same lines, though, Quarkus has done a really good job with their testing framework. So they've got all this stuff you can use. Very much like Spring Boot, they sort of just have, if you want to do testing, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And they have integration with test containers and things like that. But it shouldn't be up to the vendor to write all that stuff because it's like, there's a lot of extra work to write a whole testing framework when there should be a standard way that you can test JakartaEE stuff and have, the ability to add, vendors can add their own proprietary features to it, but there should be a way that you do it. So
I agree.
So I would love to see some, and this is something I actually, if, I pull some time out of thin air, would love to be involved with because I think there's a lot of potential there, and test containers is great. And actually at Devnexus, did you see the test containers booth? Did either of you see that?
I saw the booth. Yes, I went over to the booth.
Yeah, so did I. Because I was just like, I didn't know they had any commercial products because I've just worked with the open source framework. I was like, okay, so what is it? What is Test Containers Cloud? I
heard about that. Yes.
It seems really smart to me. I'm like, okay, because basically it's like you use a lot of test container stuff, but it doesn't run on your machine. It runs in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
They charge you, I think they haven't released, I think it's in beta now. I think it's going to be like 1 cent a minute or something like that. But it's like that. I can see that because it takes all the management of, because, at the end of the day, you're doing Docker, right? And you have to have Docker running. And then when you start doing CI/CD, it becomes a little more of a pain, especially you end up with Docker in Docker, which is a total pain in the butt. So abstracting all that away seems really smart to me. And especially if you're already doing a CI/CD and paying in a cloud environment and paying for CPU usage, etc., you could just pay them to do that, and then which might be cheaper. Who knows? So I'm very curious about that.
It sounds interesting. Yeah. The other thing I saw, and this is a different topic. I don't mean to jump around.
Yeah, it's all good.
Telemetry Hub. They had a nice booth, and it was very interesting. You could go. They've got a cloud product now. You can subscribe, and you can have all of your telemetry on a dashboard that's in the cloud, and so you can monitor your applications using their APIs, and it looked really sweet, to just be able to log into this thing and monitor everything. They take care of the cloud part of it, of course, with the telemetry, open telemetry product. But then you've just got to link it to your application. And
that sounds
off to the races. It did look nice.
The benefit of that to me is number one, you probably don't have to spend as much time creating custom dashboards like you do with like SignalFX or Datadog or something. And then also the whole multi-cloud thing, right? Like if you have services running in different cloud vendors, you could all throw it into their service and get, results from different environments. So
having it all in one place was the sweet spot, I thought.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Nice. All right. Danno, tell us about Rust.
So Rust is a pretty cool language. You don't have a garbage collection. That could that could be an issue. So their thing is, this is a systems programming language. You are compiling direct to your hardware, like C and C++, but without the so-called complexity. But it does have complexity. So it has things like borrowing and making sure you track your references and copy by value and know how everything works, because you're just going to end up not holding on to a reference, and therefore your system crashes. But it's performant. It's meant to be fast, and it's just something that's of an interest to me this year. So I've just been studying on it, and one of the reasons I'm studying on it just because I think Java's future is still going to be bright. If it isn't going to be bright, it's probably because of some company that begins with an O, and that. Sorry, hold on. All right. Anyway, joke was too funny. I had a little bit of a cough there. But anyway, so I'm just like, let's just try some other languages, particularly those that don't rely on the JVM, see which ones I like. So I've been trying it out. And then lo and behold, I try Rust, and this news item comes out with legal implications for just even mentioning the language Rust. I thought, wow, this is just like absolutely nuts. Why wouldn't you mention that? And so they have like tier level stuff and how you can, use the term and stuff like that. And then it just reminded me, oh my gosh, like, is everyone going to be doing this now? I get, protect your name or whatever, but some of these things just are like looking a little bit more ridiculous. So I still have yet to take a look at everything, so I could be wrong about some of the aspects there. But first inclination that I got from this, I thought was particularly odd, particularly also that they mentioned, the people at Rust were mentioning, sorry about that, we're just learning as we go along. I'm like, learning as you go along? What are you talking? Are you just saying that because now you regret that decision for making such crazy rules? But I thought that was kind of interesting because I know Oracle kind of has that same problem where they, release a statement on how you can use Oracle and what the new license requirements are. And then developers are like, what are you talking about? Then Oracle, would come back and say, oh, maybe our wording wasn't too good. Like every time a software company mentions like, oh, maybe our wording isn't too good, or we're just figuring it out as we go along. I'm like, maybe you should just like release stuff without like thinking about the implications first. But I don't know. Legal's got a legal, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And as you were saying, so I'm like, well, who controls Rust? And it looks like it's the Rust Foundation.
Mozilla. Yeah.
It's Mozilla? Is that where it came from?
I think so. If I'm not mistaken. I think the original author was Mozilla. I don't know whose umbrella it is. So like I said, I'm still
that sounds right.
Finding my way around the language still. But yeah, it's still a great language. It looks pretty nice. It's definitely not as intuitive as Java. But I try to be humble with that statement because I don't know about you two, but I recall back when I was learning Java, I thought Java was hard. I mean, there were some like nuances and weird things about Java that I'm just like, why doesn't this work? And like my first Java application, I ended up with an old pointer exception. So it wasn't easy for me at first back in the early 90s. So I try to think about that when I'm learning Rust.
Yeah, I can see that. Interesting. Yeah. Just a little side note, I was looking up Selenium today, just to sort of thinking about using it and haven't used it in a little while. And there is a new Selenium Manager CLI written in Rust. So
nice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So just
the latest O'Reilly Selenium book, I was a reviewer for, and that was such an excellent book. And I forgot who the author was. Here it is. Hands-on Selenium WebDriver with Java by Boni Garcia.
Okay. Nice.
And the thing that you'll love about this book is that Boni has a website with all these widgets and all the possible things that you could test. So his book is like a really overall experience, not just the book, but each of the samples goes to his website. And it's kind of like a training ground. I think of it as like kind of a training ground to learn how to do UI testing. Such a fantastic book, and it deserves the 5 stars that it has on there by far.
Nice. Let's check it out.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So you've got about 10 minutes left, Josh.
Yes.
So tell us about OpenRDR. Or didn't we already talk about that?
I think we talked about that one last time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we
All right.
And maybe NetBeans 11 as well.
17.
Honestly. Or 17, yeah, not 11.
We talked about that last time too.
I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Well, in that case, what was I going to say? Before you leave, I want to talk about SBOMs for a minute. Because one of my clients, so one of my clients came to me and said, "Hey, we need to we need to know what all the licenses are for all of our dependencies, because we have clients that care." And I was like, "Oh, well, you need a software bill of materials. You need an SBOM." So I've been helping them with that. But it got me thinking about, so I got pretty deeply into that space. I mean, obviously, I'm not a security person. But so I look at all these different tools, and it's kind of an interesting space. So for those who don't know, the bill of materials is just basically a list of all the artifacts that are involved in your application. So it comes from manufacturing, where they have a list of all of the materials that go in to make up a real product. So it's like we do every few years. We come up with a new term for the same set of things. So you can think of it as, a list of dependencies, except that the dependencies aren't necessarily just your application. It could be the dependencies of all the other things inside of the container that you're running or whatever, right? So this client, though, so often what you see is that there's a few different standards for SBOMs. There's like CycloneDX and SPD. So I should have looked them up before, so I remember. So I sound kind of know what I'm talking about. I've been using CycloneDX, which is why I don't remember the other ones. There's like 3 or 4 different standards, and they all kind of focus on different things. What my client was mostly interested in was the licensing side. Usually, what you find is you'll have an SBOM, and also people will use it, and they'll determine all the security vulnerability. So you get a list of every dependency, and there's databases that say which dependencies, which versions have which vulnerabilities. So then you can get like a list. Okay, my application has these vulnerabilities and these dependencies, and the severity of them is whatever it is, and all that kind of fun stuff. So
is it scanned, or do you have to manually enter?
No, you can scan them. So there's different tools. There's actually a Maven plugin for CycloneDX, which is what I've been using. And what's cool is that if you usually can translate in between them. And just so I can be SBOM.
I was thinking Maven Site, because Maven Site also lists your dependencies and what licenses you're using, but that's just all dependencies.
Right, and that does help like a lot. Like for my case, that's actually fine. Just knowing that for all the dependencies of the application, because they're not at the point where they care about anything beyond that. But from a security perspective, they usually want to know more than just the application dependencies. So here's what it is. Okay, so SPDX is one of the other ones, and then SWID is another one. And all this had a lot to do with NIST, the National Institute for Technologies, saying, hey, we want to know what's in your software, basically, what vulnerabilities are there in your software. So SPDX is from Linux Foundation, and CycloneDX is OWASP, the security organization. So I found CycloneDX actually also includes licensing information. So I was like, and it has more support, more tooling that I could find. So I've been going down the road of, hey, let me generate an SBOM from your Maven POM, and then also from a Gradle project, and looking at all the different tooling. And it's been kind of a fun little ride. But what's interesting is that people normally talk about it from the perspective of security, and that's certainly important. But people don't talk about the licensing aspect of it enough, I don't think. So from our perspective, from this client's perspective, it's like, okay, I want to know which dependencies I have are using LGPL, or, so what you can do is once you have an SBOM, you can actually then use tools to analyze and set up different policies and things like that. So there's this cool called dependency track, which is also open source from OWASP or OWASP, which lets you look and see all the dependencies and all the licenses and all the security vulnerabilities, and it's really handy. And then
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also a lot of tool vendors like Sonatype and JFrog, and basically anyone that deals with dependencies has some tool that will do this kind of stuff for you. So anyway, so it's been kind of a neat space, and it's just, to me, another like evolution of the software industry to basically, we're getting to a point where we depend on so many different things to build our applications, and not paying attention to where they come from has caused us issues.
Yeah, yeah, it can't just be pulling it down from the web and don't worry about it. You have to really pay attention to what you're pulling down and which dependencies those projects have.
Right. And then, if your product is something you install at places, then they need to know what's going in their environment, right? And I think there's also a similar effort, which is like a software as a service SBOM or something. I haven't looked into that too much, but that makes sense too. It's like if you're using a service, you might want to, even though it's not the same level of risk for you, you still might want an idea about what they're using. So
yeah, just two things real quick. I think another tool you could use is developed by SNCC, right?
Yes,
that's another one that you can run along with your Maven build, I believe, and it will go ahead and list out what vulnerabilities you have. And then I think
it's pronounced Sneak.
Oh, go ahead. Sneak?
Oh, sorry.
I think
it's pronounced Sneak.
I don't know.
You're probably right. That sounds more. I've been pronouncing it SNCC in my head.
Yeah,
that's right.
You're probably right about that.
Yeah, SNYK.
Right.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to mention, we did have Brian Fox on, and it was a good discussion. You should listen to it on the Off Heat podcast. But he is the co-founder and CTO of Sonatype, and he's on the government. He's a governance board member and Open SSF. He's a member of the Apache Software Foundation, and where I was thinking, I mentioned earlier, he's an Apache Maven PMC member. So yeah, it was a really good discussion. It was right up the same alley as the discussion you're having now on the SBOMs and whatnot. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I actually stopped by the Sonatype booth as well. So, SNCC is short for So Now You Know. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You did not.
But yeah, I guess it's depending who you ask. SNCC, one of the founders pronounces it as Sneak, and there are others that pronounce it SNCC. The noise that a lock makes when shutting. Now that you know that you're more secure. So I don't know.
So it's like micrometer or micrometer.
Yes.
That's right. Micrometer or micrometer.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to definitely check out your podcast, hear more of what he has to say. Yeah. Because I've actually been looking at this stuff a lot lately. So cool.
Cool.
All right. Before you go, Josh.
Yeah. Just a quick mention, Kotlin 1.8.20 is out. There look like there's quite a few updates in this release. I know it's not a major release, but some of the biggest highlights are that there's a new Kotlin K2 compiler update. There's an experimental Kotlin WASM target. There's JVM incremental compilation by default in Gradle. And quite a few other enhancements here in this release. So if you're using Kotlin, you probably want to go grab it. It looks like a good release.
Cool.
And sorry about the dog.
I didn't hear it, but I have bad hearing. So. All right. So, this might be the fastest podcast ever for us. So let's move on to picks. Woohoo! So Josh, your pick.
So my pick is more just when you're laying low and chilling out and hanging out and not coding. A show that you could watch would be called, it's called The Big Door Prize. This is a very interesting show. It's on Apple TV Plus. And to me, Apple TV Plus is one of the cheapest ones you can go ahead and pay for. And they've got a lot of great shows. So I paid for that one. And it does, this show, basically the show is all about a man and his family. And this guy is a teacher. He's a professor. And he goes to their local convenience store or hardware store, whatever it is, and sees that there's a pod there. And it's like looks like a big video game like they used to go sit in at the arcade. And nobody knows how it got there, not even the person who is running the store. But he said that lots of people are going in there and they enjoy it because it tells them what their potential is in life. So he resists the need to go in there for quite a while. But then everyone in the town ends up, saying that they got, here's their potential on the card and whatnot. And so I've only made it to a couple of episodes so far, but it's kind of this weird science fiction and comedy mix, and it's a pretty good show. So it's pretty interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, just something to watch while you're not doing much else. You're looking to relax.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really funny.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right, that sounds like a good use for my Apple Plus subscription, since I don't use it that much. But it's like, but I should just cancel this one. But
that's a good one. And if you haven't watched Ted Lasso yet, I have to recommend that one because that one is always funny. That's a really good show.
Everyone says that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to be a big soccer fan to enjoy it. It's just funny.
Okay. I will keep that in mind. All right. So I don't know if you want to drop, Josh, but I'm going to continue with picks.
Yeah, I probably will go ahead and drop off now, if that's okay. It was great to hang out with you guys and talk a little bit. And until next time, I hope you have a great one.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks for everything. Josh. Take care.
All right. So I've got a pick. It's kind of mundane compared to a cool show. But so I, like many people, I use a Mac and I'm not a Windows fan, but there are a few Windows features I do kind of like. So the, with a Mac, if you want to like have multiple windows on your screen, like side by side, you can do that, but then it goes in this weird full screen mode and then it becomes a pain in the butt to manage. And you can't really have too many windows that way and stuff like that. So Rectangle is this handy little utility that lets you sort of get the Windows style feature where you can have windows like side by side, but it doesn't become a full screen thing. And it gives you all these different positions, like so you can tile them in all these different ways, and they'll like snap there and stuff. So it's a pretty handy little utility. I use it regularly. If you want some more flexibility with arranging your windows on the Mac, check out Rectangle Mac. So, and again, the link will be in the show notes.
Cool.
And Danno, didn't you have something? Oh yes, you did have something.
Yeah,
it's very original.
I'm gonna share a screen for this one. Probably, I know we have like video, but I know some people aren't watching video, but. ChatGPT for just about anything. Just absolutely great for code. I haven't done JSF in a while. So since you were talking about JSF, how about create I don't even know if this one would work. Help me out here, Kito. Create a JSF application for a model called employee with attributes for attributes first name. We'll see if we can figure out the types: last name, date of birth, and an employee ID of type long. I don't know. Trying to be a little specific here, see what it comes up with.
Yeah.
So I have created a JSF application for a model called employee with attributes first name, last name, and date of birth, and an employee ID of type long. I don't know. We'll see if this one passes. It usually does pretty good.
Oh, fascinating. First, you create the project in your IDE of choice, Eclipse or IntelliJ.
Like I said, I just came up with this right now.
It has Maven dependencies. Not bad.
Creates your Maven project. So for all those that are just joining us in an audio, it's creating the page now, but it created the model. It created a Maven output. There it is. So still chugging along.
Well, the employee page it's creating is a nice faceless page. For some reason, it's using a table, but that's okay. We'll let it go ahead.
Oh, it gave up somewhere along the way, which I get. Like, this is where you probably would pay, like, oh, what'd you give up there? Because I think it just truncated at the end. But you can kind of see the potential of what it's able to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
I almost was going to mention this as something to talk about too, because, I have a problem sometimes. Something new will come out and I'll be like, I don't have time to mess with that. Right. So I finally started messing with ChatGPT a few weeks ago. But then what was it, last week or two? I was like, I should just have it open all the time. Like, why don't I just put it open? And I actually was, I had a problem with a shell script that ran on Linux, but didn't run on Windows. I mean, not on Windows, on Mac OS, which doesn't happen too often. So I asked ChatGPT, I told it the error, and it was like, yeah, there's a different version of SED running on Mac OS, which is the BSD variant versus the one running on Linux. And it actually helped me figure out what the problem was. It's very handy.
Nice.
So Danno, if you're not looking, you just created a binary tree example. What would you do?
Yeah, this one's, I would like, tell me, I thought I'd give it a more harder question. Show me an example of a recursive type in Kotlin. Yeah, this is what it came up with. So looks pretty cool. Yeah, it just seems to know everything. On a more personal level, let me just type this one in. Let me do a new chat here. Things like, how do I clean battery acid from a device? Like, just general things that you want to know about. It has an answer for. And you're like, well, Google does that. But my retort to that is, yeah, but you're going to be like laden with ads, and it's just going to be annoying. And particularly for like recipes, I don't know if you ever tried to look for recipes online. Is that, if someone's always telling you, oh, I was at a picnic and blah, 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 blah. It's like 5 paragraphs before you even get to the actual recipe. So this one is just, how to do things. It's just like this wonderful helper that just gives you directions for everything. How do you hard boil eggs?
Nice.
In an Instant Pot, right? Like a recipe would just be, if I go to a web page, there are going to be so many advertisements, it's going to crash my browser. This one is, oh, here you go. I'll tell you exactly what buttons to press. And whatever I can find, I am plugging into this thing. I just absolutely love it.
Danno,
here, let's ask one. How do I rename files of a particular suffix to a different suffix in batch? Right? Like, I go to Stack Overflow, but oftentimes, well, it's not like you're always going to get a great answer here either. And they say that we're going to give you wrong information every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But like things like this, how do I rename files with a particular suffix to a different suffix in bash? Let's see what it does. Boom. I didn't even know that one existed. and it explains the reason how to do it and how you can go about it. Oh, what a wonderful example. So this is get me everything from text or something that is not text or MD and change that to .txt. So pretty neat example there. It's just amazing how much it knows. And I know it's dangerous too, but for it's just great.
It's been fascinating because also what I do think is very impressive is the context. So it's like you could say, why don't you put this in Danno? Can you show me how to do it using what is it? PowerShell.
Can you show me how to use, what was it?
Just tell me, can you show me how to do it using PowerShell?
Oh, the same thing?
Yeah, you don't have to say the same thing. That's what I love about it. Just how do you do it? Like
as a conversation.
Yep.
Now tell me how you can do the same thing in PowerShell. Yeah, it has a conversational context. Is that what you were saying, Kito?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, in PowerShell, you use rename item commandlet.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, so to me, that's what I like. And there's been a couple of times I'm doing stuff and I'm like, but what about this? And it's, oh yeah, sorry. And then it gives you a better answer,
Right.
But I think we're in early days. Eventually, this will have ads in it too. It'll pop up and be like,
what's that?
Like you'll have to watch a 30-second video before it answers your question. Something. Eventually.
I know. But you know what? Oh, here's my theory. We'll see if it works out. Never underestimate, because we were just talking about Oracle and REST. Never underestimate lawyers from destroying things.
Yes.
But this may be for a good reason this time. Usually I'm like, yeah. Usually like, what are they doing? But my theory is based upon how models are trained, I think AI is legally in jeopardy because lawyers are going to start demanding on how things were trained. And laws are then going to be put in place that you cannot train for things that are under a certain copyright or under a copyleft or, whatever kind of licensing that, forbids them from doing so. Once that happens, then it's game over because you're not going to have like the breadth of data to train your model anymore. That's just my theory here.
And that makes me wonder about the GitHub Copilot, which is by the same company that does ChatGPT, OpenAI, because it's a more constrained set, right? It's just code. Do they take the licenses into account when they train?
I don't think so. But I think is it Pilot Microsoft?
It's Open API is behind it as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
This is the reason, from my understanding, that ChatGPT is so good at writing code. It's my understanding, at least. So
yeah.
We'll see. Fascinating new world. And I've actually been wanting to use. I was using CodePilot a while ago, but I haven't used it recently because there's the client concern, right? It's like I'm getting paid. I'm using my client's code. Do I want to send all their code to Microsoft to get suggestions? It's a little murky.
Yeah.
If it's my own project, yeah, sure. I don't care if I'm playing around. But I haven't gotten to the point of using it for client work because I don't want to deal with that legal headache. So, anyways, fun stuff. All right,
I'm doing can you make a sample XML? I think this would be great for. Now I do a lot of training. A lot of training firms are saying don't use this. I'm like, I don't know. Use to me, it's like use it. I mean, it's just a tool like anything else. It's just how you explain things. That's the value of. Doing a training, but yeah, I don't know. But for creating sample data for, maybe you just want to learn how to parse XML or JSON or YAML, just create for me a sample file. And yeah, I'd be very much appreciative of you because I don't have to do that manually.
I was pretty impressed with because I was using Copilot for the speaker tracks project a while ago. That I fell off. But yeah, I'd be typing in like, I'd be trying. This is when I was initially creating the models for, right? And there's like sessions and different artifacts and things. And it actually created it would like give me default values for a session because somewhere in GitHub there's models with sessions. So it actually was very good at saying, you start typing a model, it's like, oh, this is a person. These are all the fields which are usually in a person,
Right.
And that saves you time, assuming that your model is, generic enough that it fits. But
yeah.
And I saw some people, there's a training chat group that I'm in, and they were talking about people using it for outlines and stuff for training.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That's interesting. But I can see how, let's use, it sort of gives you something to start with, right? It's like, okay,
right.
I'm teaching a course on blah, blah, blah. Give me an outline for a course on blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. But at some point, you're going to have to know your stuff because ChatGPT is not going to fill that in for you. No.
To me, it's just another tool. That's why I decided just to kind of have it open in case, something. I'm like, how do I do this? And I was thinking about it the other day because like it gives you an answer that's very matter of fact, right? It's like, this is how you do X, and then you're like, wait, it's not really, dude. So then you have to like tell it to correct itself, and whereas Google is more like, here are 4 billion ways to do X. Choose one.
Right.
We've ordered them for you, so maybe you only have to look at the first 3. But so it's sort of like, on the one hand, it's like it's simple just to get one answer, but that one answer may not be right, and it acts like it's right.
That's right.
So
right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know about that. Was it ChatGPT 5 or whatever that was called? The latest one where some CEOs want to put that one on hold. I don't know what's behind that. I need to study up on that.
Okay, yeah, because 4 came out, so you're saying the next version they're freaked out about it.
Yeah, they're freaked out about it. I don't know what they're freaked out about. I need to study up on it.
Yeah, well, let me know when you find out. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I don't take what CEOs say as like words of wisdom anyway. So I'll find out for myself.
That's understandable. So. All right, so moving along, other Pubhouse Network podcasts. There's Offheap, which you just heard about. They have that great live recorded podcast coming up, which is probably out by the time you hear this, and Java Pubhouse as well. And we got a few events. So May 4th through 6th in Edinburgh, Scotland,
Edinburgh.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying there. All right. But I've actually been there before too, so I should be able to pronounce it. It's been a long time though.
I've never been there actually.
It's a beautiful city. It is really nice.
If I go, I'd never leave. So that's why I go.
Yeah. Oh, dude, and there's so much scotch.
I know. That's why I never leave.
I
Not to get too political, but whenever so one of my favorite stories was Ernest Hemingway. He was in London, and he and a few others got news that France has been liberated, particularly Paris has been liberated. And he was like, we got to get there as fast as possible. And his only thing was like, it's going to be the greatest party that we're ever going to experience. So let's get over there as fast as possible. I'm like, man, I like the way this dude rolls, because like he's like, this is going to be the greatest party ever. Let's get over there. If Scotland ever becomes independent, I will spend maybe up to 3,000. I don't know. Who knows what it is? But I would love to just be there, like when that happens, and be like a part of that country that's been wanting independence for so long. Can you imagine the party that's about to happen there? I would even think if you're British, you would go over there, because that party is just going to be magnificent.
That's not something I'd given much thought before, Danno. Thank you.
That's right. How much would you pay for a good party? That's right. Or a globally well-known party that's about to happen. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Very cool. Very cool. So JCon Europe is June 20th to 23rd. That should be really cool. I was on the content board. I won't be at the conference, but there are a lot of awesome talks of that one. So
Wonderful.
if you're in Europe or fancy traveling to Cologne, Germany, you can check that one out. May 30th through 31st, J Prime, which I don't know much about this one.
Yeah, that one's in Sofia, Bulgaria, and that one's done by Mitya. I forgot his last name, and a few others. So pretty big conference, very well received.
Nice, nice. Have you been to that one before? Or been to Bulgaria?
No, but I've been to Sofia like 5 times.
Oh, nice.
I'm always there.
Nice. All right. Go ahead, Danno. Take it away.
Let's see. With all these wonderful places, we talk about Edinburgh, Cologne, Sofia. We can't leave out this important city, Des Moines, Iowa. Anyway, so we'll have a no fluff just stuff over in Iowa, and that's a great place. There are great people there, so enjoy it there. Then we have Austin, Lone Star. That's always great, wonderful venue, July 14th through 15th, and then UberConf, Denver. That's the big one. I'll be there. Kito will be there, and wonderful, beautiful sunshine. Great event, wonderful hotel. And so that's July 18th through 21st. JE Champions Conference, I think it was already recorded online, right? Or is it?
Yeah, I think it's just theirs.
That was already over.
Yeah. What's Cloudland? Someone put this
I don't know.
All right.
There's people put stuff on our document. We don't even know.
There's random crap in our
No,
document. We'll just skip over that stuff.
That's right. We don't know what it is. JSpring, what is going on? People need to stop making conferences.
No, they should not like conferences. All right. I think that's it. Anything else you want to talk about, Danno?
No. Well, let's see. What was it? The software bill of materials. What was the one? Oh, Java 20 is out.
Oh, yes.
Pick it up.
Yes.
Yeah. We're getting really, really close to, and I just did another presentation before this, and it was JDK 20 and the interpreter pattern and what that looks like now, and how we can go about, doing the interpreter pattern and how easy it is. But like one of them is pattern matching. So they have, you can do pattern matching labels or matching labels, and we can start to have destructuring now as part of it. And I believe it's JEP 466 or something like that. I think I remembered what the number was. Let's see. Did I get the number right? JEP. No, I didn't, because that one's like Jupyter Notebook. It's JEP, right? Java Enhancement Process.
Yeah. Let's see. Yep, that's not
I guess I didn't know the number. Let's see. But there's that's the 19 one. 427 was the 19 version, but the latest one that's on preview, which came out on 20 and is officially, I think, going to be coming out in version 21, 433. There it is. JEP 433. I'll put the link here on the chat. But that one shows the advancements that we are getting with pattern matching, how to go about things. Is just going to transform and be amazing on how we do Java. Just absolutely great.
Yeah, it's looking really nice. And this is actually why I'm trying to get every client I work with. It's like, you should just go ahead and upgrade. You don't have to stick with JDK 8 forever.
So many people have 8. Oh my gosh. I know we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
At this point, it's a tragedy. It's just absolute tragedy.
It really is. I tell people they get performance gains. That I figure that's a generic thing. since
Yeah.
it seems to care about developers having an easier time.
I was thinking of writing like a small book, convincing your boss to upgrade from JDK 8 or convincing your boss to accelerate from 8. And I think that would be a good received book, but it's time constraint, but I think that would be great. Like I know Ken Cousin and I, we have differing opinions on this because he doesn't think the module system is that important. But I'm like, man, you are missing out on the module system and what it does, like, especially if you do containerization. I don't know if you knew this, and I'll bring up the blog on this one, maybe as another pick. Docker, let's see. It's using JDEPS, JLink, and Docker, and here it is. It's a really good one. JLink, Docker, modules. Oh yeah, there it is. Developing smaller application. Yeah, here it is. It was the top one. Open that one, Kito, and then I'll describe it to the audience. I don't know if I talked about this one before, but the idea for this, and this person is creating a big Java application, or somewhat big Java application, where he's creating an app. So if you scroll down a bit, this one's a Java-based application, creating a Gradle project with it. Scroll down some more. So here's the first project. Here's the build Gradle.
All right, so build Gradle.
So standard stuff using log4j, JUnit with Jupyter. So a lot of basic stuff. I'm not a Gradle person, but here's that log42j file. Here's the app. So source main Java app. In fact, it's not even much. It's like log info, log error, log info. So it's a small app. So he goes through the build and creates an executable jar. Okay. Not too big stuff here. And finally, here it is. So what he does here is he creates a Docker image, creates a Docker file for it. If we go to the Docker file, we just see what it looks like. Docker file is coming from OpenJDK Alpine. So he's doing what most people do, particularly those that are using JDK 8, and that is bring a Docker container that is Linux and a particular version like JDK 17, like what's not to like. Dust our hands off and we're done. But he runs it, and it runs really well. No problem there. So click and see where it says you will see something similar to. Click on that black box there. It actually says something. There it is. So this one Docker image, as small as the application is, take a look at the size over in the right-hand side.
Oh my God, 328 megs.
That's huge. From a security standpoint, there's a lot to worry about as far as an attack surface, right? That's just a lot, and you don't know what's actually vulnerable. And plus, the latency time from getting it from your registry over to your computer, just like how much is that? Doing that over and over again. Like there's no benefit of this, and you're just harming yourself over time. And it's expensive, needless to say. So he continues his story here. So he's using here JDEPS. So here's the Docker file, and he's calling it JRE build. He's still using the OpenJDK Alpine, but in this case, he's just using it to determine what modules that you need to use for this application. So the JDK was broken up into multiple modules, and you don't need everything. JDK 8, you have no choice. You have to bring everything along for the ride. But if you only need 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different modules, then what you can create out of that is a more lightweight JRE. And so this command that we see here on this screen, and for those that are just listening, this one's running JDEPs. And with JDEPs, you give it your application and what this is going to be doing at the kind of like the very end there. This is calling run JDEPs with a lot of flags. But at the end, it says build app.jar, which is the jar file for the application. And it says whatever the modules you need for this application to run, go ahead and output that under jredeps.info. So if you don't mind scrolling down there, Kito, what you're going to see as far as the output, there it is. So if you click on that black box, that will show a larger version here. So this says the modules that you need just to run this simple app: Java base, Java compiler, Java desktop. The desktop thing is weird. Java management, naming, RMI, scripting, and Java SQL.
Not sure why, but
what's that?
I'm not sure why it needs Java SQL, but
yeah, I'm not sure either because it looked like you didn't. Oh, yeah, I bet Log4j uses it. I bet.
Oh yes,
could be. Yeah. Okay. So scroll down. So here's JLink. Now, what's happening here is that after the JDEPs call, which we already ran, the author here is adding another thing called JLink. So JDEPs reports what modules you're actually using. And then JLink is then run. And take a look how this one's being done. This one is create for me a JRE, a custom JRE, where the only modules that I need are under there, and it has a line there that says -- add modules, $cat JRE deps info, which was the file that was created beforehand. So this one is create for me a brand new JDK or JRE. It's a runtime, not a JDK. Sorry, I misspoke there. Then the next section that you see here is from Alpine latest. That's important because it's no longer 17 Alpine, which is the Docker container that has Java and the JDK and all that. This is a raw Linux. And if you take a look at the copy, the first copy line, that one says, go to the previous build from JRE, get me the JRE that I custom made, and then get me the libraries, and then get me the app.jar, because that's the only thing I need to run. And so if you continue scrolling down and go to the next black box, there it is. So it was 300 and now it's 58.
Nice. That's a pretty huge improvement.
That is a huge improvement. If you are on JDK 8, you're losing money. And you're least secure, of course. But yeah, that module system is it. Like, and I love this blog post. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and thanks for that. Because I've actually never bothered using. I think I've maybe used JDEPs a little bit, but not JLink at all.
Yeah, same here. And I'm like, you know what? When I saw this article, I'm like, nah. We all need to start using. We all need to start using the module system more and more.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Cool. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but JDK 20 has a module system, the previews, text blocks, vars. You're missing so much, from that JDK 8. But yeah, JDK 20 is just like absolutely the next step. 21 is going to be the LTS version, I think. So that will be coming out in October, and I think the pattern match will be final.
And do you think Loom will be final in there in 21?
I think Loom will be final, but not the structured concurrency. Unless they're going to pull a magic trick off their hat, I don't think structured concurrency is going to be official. Right. They have a foreign function memory interface as well, so you don't have to do everything on the heap anymore. That could be dangerous. We'll see how that happens. But yeah, if you need to use native memory, you could do so.
Yeah, I think it's nice to make it easy to use, but yeah, it'll be misused, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, because everyone thinks they're self-important and they're like, oh, well, my app is so wonderful that I need to use this. It's just like, then we're back at square one.
Gonna totally be some security exploits based on that, I'm sure.
Not total. It's going to be a disaster.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know much about that API. Maybe they have precautions on there.
Yeah, maybe so. Who knows? All right, Danno. Well, I was just thinking, what was it last time we were talking one time, and I was like, Danno is such a fountain of knowledge. We can just talk to Danno for the whole hour. I mean, hey.
Oh, no.
So
I BS for like the first 45 minutes before any nugget of truth comes out of me.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Well, you can find the Stack Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts and at stackpodcast.com. And we'll be back in roughly a month or so, probably with a guest, quite likely.
Could be.
And feel free to check out previous episodes. Lots of great topics out there. And thank you, Danno and Josh, for joining. And we will see you next time. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.